The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, I don't know what it is, Monday, August 12th. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. I was in Frankfurt for the weekend. I flew up to Frankfurt on Thursday. That's why we haven't had shows the last few days, the end of last week. And then during the weekend, I was at a conference in Frankfurt, an interesting conference. It's called Dialogue. It really is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. I think I told you about it 2 years ago when I was there for the last time. That conference was in Portugal. This time it was in Germany. But there was a conference pretty much every couple of years. No, sorry. There are two conferences every year. There are two conferences every year. And I was not there with Nikos. No, I was there by myself. It's a conference. Actually, there was one of the Objectivists there. Well, I'm not supposed to say who was there. Anyway, it's an interesting conference. It's a conference of basically successful people in a variety of different fields. I'd say most of the people there are tech founders, very successful tech founders in a variety of different roles. Although there are also finance people, there are also political people, a lot of politicians from Europe, because we were in Europe, and a lot of politicians from Europe. Some American politicians, but not that many. Journalists, successful journalists, like people who run content for Meta, for the big social media companies. Really cool people. Venture capitalists, but mostly, I'd say, if on balance, most of the people there are tech or VC, venture capital people. Other public intellectuals, I wasn't the only one. But not many. Like, again, most were in business. Anyway, fascinating, always fun. It's not so much a conference where you sit and listen to lectures. It's much more a conference where you participate. So small groups, discussion about topics, and a lot of involvement of the people at the conference, a lot of engagement, a lot of involvement, and really fascinating. And it's good because these are people who maybe have read Ayn Rand a long time ago. I met a few, the people who know something about Ayn Rand, but they generally have a negative view, or they've absorbed it from the culture, a negative view. And the fact that they are thrust into events where I'm part of them, and the small group events, and we get a talk, and they kind of discover that, no, these guys are not crazy. Maybe they've actually got a point. Maybe there's something here. There's real value to that, to normalizing objectivism, to getting it into the culture, to making it part of the debate. So yeah, it was good. I got to moderate some sessions. So they actually gave me some moderation responsibilities. That was fun. Yeah, the whole event was super fun. You spend 2.5 days with unbelievably smart, successful people. Again, not objectivists, but there were a lot of, I know this will come as a shock to many of you, but there were a lot of unbelievably successful people who are not objectivists. Shocking as that might be. All right, let's jump into some of the news. And just to remind you, just because I see we're kind of zeroed out on the super chat questions, which is kind of weird. Today's show will be about an hour and a half long, depending on your questions. It could be much shorter. It could be half an hour long at this rate, if there are no questions. But Super Chat is open. You can ask questions in the Super Chat. We do have a goal for the first couple of hours. So for the first hour and a half, this will go at most an hour and a half. I've got to teach a class later. It is late already. I forgot to say, I'm in Barcelona. You might have noticed I'm not in my usual place. I'll be here until the middle of September. Then I'll be in Israel for 2 weeks, and then be back in Puerto Rico. All right, so where are we? Everybody says they missed me. Cool. All right. So let's start with Ukraine. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's going on in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have invaded Russia. Ukrainian forces, we talked about this a little bit last week, but it's only developed and it's only gotten more substantial. The Ukrainian forces have crossed the border, have invaded Russia with significant force. And they have taken now, I think the last thing I saw was something like 100,000 square kilometers. I mean, that's a big territory. Yeah, 1,000, not 100,000, 1,000 square kilometers in Russia's Kursk region. There's also some indications that in the Bogrod, that is the region just south of Kursk, the Ukrainians have made some incursions over there as well. And they're just driving into Russia. Their troops are just, they're experiencing some resistance. Most of it they've overcome. Russia has been forced to reallocate its forces and bring some of the forces into Kursk, who were stationed in Ukraine. So they're actually pulling people from the front lines and pulling them north towards Ukraine. North towards Kursk. And so the Ukrainians are engaging in battle with troops that were before inside Ukrainian territory. Now they're actually fighting inside Russia. The whole thing is just crazy. This is massive humiliation of the Russian military, massive humiliation of Putin himself. This is not going according to Putin's plan. Putin had no intention. And this is really, when one thinks about what is the strategy here of Ukrainians, what do they have to gain from this action? I think the main thing they have to gain is humiliating Putin and creating this angst and uncertainty and surprise and confusion within the on the Russian side. Whether ultimately this is going to be used, they're hoping to take this territory just in case Trump wins and they have to go to the negotiating table with Russia and they can trade Kursk for some of their areas back south. But that would mean they would now have to get entrenched in Kursk. It would mean they'd have to fortify the place. They'd have to build defensive lines. Is that really what they want to do? How far out, how much territory do they want in order to do that? Will they back out? Will they solidify a line somewhere? What exactly is the tactic? I don't know. But yeah, you can imagine they're taking territory so they win the negotiations that Trump will force everybody to participate in. The Ukrainians have something to bargain with. They'll have some Russian land to trade for the Ukrainian land that the Russians are stealing from them. That is certainly a possibility, but it's not going to be simple. It's going to be difficult for them. Other possibilities are just to distract the Russian forces and pull them off of the main line and maybe weaken the defensive posture of the Russians in Donetsk province or somewhere else, which would allow the Ukrainians to advance. Hard to tell if that's doable and how much can really be achieved, and how many troops will be forced out, and whether Ukraine can make any gains in the areas that Russia is occupying. I just don't know. It really is hard to tell. what else? Other possibility is Ukraine actually. Okay. Other possibilities are Ukraine actually moves to encircle the Russian troops, cut them off from behind, but that is fairly unlikely, I think, given that we have a situation where it's fairly unlikely, given how far north this incursion has happened. Kursk is pretty far from where the Russian troops actually are. So I find it hard to believe that they will be able to do something like that. So, hard to really figure out exactly what the end game for the Ukrainians is. Certainly, a negotiating tactic certainly puts them in a position where they can negotiate, but it also it extends their lines, and it also moves Ukrainian troops away, let's say, from the Belarus border, or it moves Ukrainian troops away from a potential offensive operation to try to retake parts of Ukraine that have been occupied by the Russians. So a lot up in the air. Really, at this point, hard to tell exactly what the outcome is going to be. But yeah, Ukrainians are just marching into or driving into Russia, and the Russians are not able to stop them. And how far they'll go, and again, exactly what the strategic purpose of all this, still hard to tell. All right, so that is what we have in terms of Ukraine invading Russia, and I'm going to keep a close eye on this and give you my insights to the extent I have any on how it develops from here. It's really fascinating to watch what's going on there. And I do think it's not going well. It's not going well for Russia. Not going well for Ukraine either. So it's a real challenge. Let's see. Okay, let's do UK incitement quickly. Not only are riots continuing in the UK, I think I don't think the media is reporting much about it, but riots are continuing in the UK. The UK government is responding to this with basically threats and actions that are set basically to restrict free speech. Instead of getting tough with the rioters, instead of getting tough with criminals and with people who are violating the law, violating, I'd say, objective law, valid law, the British government is focused almost completely on this, incitement, and on this idea that there's incitement going on, and on the idea that somehow it is speech that is the problem, and that it is speech that must be curtailed. There's discussion even potentially to, there is a story out there that a former Twitter executive is calling for personal sanctions and potentially an arrest warrant against Elon Musk for so-called inciting violence. Now, there's no question that there have been people in England and outside of Britain that have been, clearly, one second, let me see what's going on here. Sorry, the camera went out. We will see if we can get it back. There's no question there being people that are involved in incitement, and there are people that, not incitement, sorry, there are people who are being involved in misinformation. But the reality is we live in a world, we should be living in a world in the West of free speech. Misinformation is not a crime. Incitement is. If you go riot, and if you have credibility, then sure, you could be tried for incitement. But here the issue is not incitement. Here the issue is, for the most part, speech. It's for the most part false speech, sometimes even lying and deception, sometimes just misinformation or confusion or just being wrong, or sometimes it's just political views that we don't like. The UK is going down a very, very, very dangerous path in criminalizing certain types of speech and criminalizing speech that our politicians and don't approve of. I just saw the actor of Mr. Bean, and what was the actor? What's the name of the actor? What's the actor? What's this? What's the actor in Mr. Bean? Rowan Atkinson. I just saw Rowan Atkinson do a video in support of free speech. Very good video. He's actually quite excellent on this issue. What he's saying, in the UK, they've written laws that have basically criminalized speech and basically made it possible to arrest people for the things that they say. And there are real horrors involved in this. I think there's a new one out now. I mean, there was a video out in 2012, but I think there's a new video out now. Anyway, I thought that's true. The current government has a real danger of using the laws, which are pretty bad laws to begin with, in restricting speech and using these riots to use as an excuse for that. People calling for Musk to be arrested, or there to be a warrant on Musk's arrest, because Musk wrote in one of his posts, "Civil war is inevitable in the United Kingdom." I mean, is the fact that he wrote "Civil war is inevitable," if he has that opinion, is that inciting for violence? Obviously, it's not. Musk has called Starmer, the Prime Minister of England, two-tier kier and a hypocrite over his approach to policing. He's tough, supposedly, on these far-right gangs that are rioting, but he's very weak on Muslim rioting. Musk has also shared a false post suggesting Starmer was planning to set up detainment camps in the Falkland Islands, which a post he deleted because it was obviously false. But none of that constitutes incitement. None of that constitutes force. None of that constitutes a reason, to restrict Trump, to arrest Trump, to restrict Musk, or to arrest Musk, or to do anything negative towards Musk. So, very dangerous times in the UK. This government is obviously already in trouble. There is a British law called Online Safety Act of 2023. Isn't that funny? 2023, the Conservative government was in power. So they can't accuse the left of this one, but this law in 2023 is a law that very much makes it possible to restrict people's free speech online if the government deems it insightful in any kind of far-reached way. Now there are calls as this author writes, in the short term, Musk and fellow executives should be reminded of their criminal liability for their actions under existing laws Britain's Online Safety Act of 2023 should be beefed up with immediate effect. I mean, this is truly unbelievable. Truly unbelievable that Britain is on the verge, or, well, you know, it's hard to tell if it's on the verge, but has laws, hate speech laws, that are so restrictive and so dangerous to free speech that you might not like, but speech that people have a right to engage in. Since we're talking about the UK, I guess there was breaking news today. There was a stabbing attack in Leicester Square, right next to my hotel, where I stay in London all the time. Not in London right now, but a knife attack in Leicester Square. We don't know who the attacker is. There was no description given of the attacker. The victims are a girl, 11-year-old girl, and a woman who is 34. I mean, Leicester Square is one of the busiest places in London, maybe the busiest. It's right on kind of borders with the back of Trafalgar Square on the one side and Chinatown on the other side, and Charing Cross Road on the other side. I mean, it's a super busy area. And that somebody would attack a girl and a woman there with a knife, just horrific. Again, my hotel is right on Leicester Square, so it's somewhere where I'm there often. It does appear that somebody who, I guess a security guard in a restaurant nearby, actually jumped the guy with the knife and kicked the knife away, and with the help of other people held him down until the police came and arrested him. It is worth noting, I guess, that the name of the person who basically stopped the knifing attack was Abdullah. So obviously a Muslim name. I think he's from, I'm not sure where he's from, but Abdullah is the one who stopped the attack. He was 29, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he's from. Now there are also, this is kind of Twitter, right? So this guy stopped the attack, but then there are posts saying, yeah, he stopped the attack, good for him, he's a hero, but then showing tweets of his that he's supporting Hamas. But then, if you look closely at those tweets, is it really him making those tweets, or is it somebody else who set up an account to make him look bad? So, I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but really, it's hard to tell these days on Twitter and on social media what is real and what is not, what is fake and what is not. Anyway, it will be interesting to see if the attacker, if the guy with a knife who knifed these other people, if that person is a Muslim, it'll be interesting to see what the response is of the rioters. If he's not a Muslim, what's the response going to be? Hard to tell. Anyway, the hero in this case is a Muslim, probably a Muslim immigrant, Abdullah, a security guard from nearby, and there are interviews online. You can find interviews online of him talking about jumping the guy who was the criminal. All right. Good for him. He is indeed a hero. Let's say. All right. But what I would warn you from doing is don't go to the so-called Abdullah account. So if it's Abdullah from UK, as far as I can tell, that is not his real account, but that is an account that somebody has set up with the primary goal of making him ultimately look bad. But I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Hard to tell. If it is the same guy, then he's obviously massively pro-Hamas. So There's your dilemma, right? Hero there and horrible on other stuff. All right, where are we? Let's see, what else did we want to talk about? So, Israel, pins and needles continues. Israelis waiting to see what is going to happen. The Iranians have not struck yet. There's some reason to believe it's going to happen tonight or tomorrow, but there's been some reason to believe that for over a week now. I've certainly been anticipating an attack for quite a while. I'm not sure what has held back the Iranians. Maybe it's getting the right kind of equipment from the Russians, the right kind of air defense systems for Israel's response. I don't know. Maybe it's some internal discussions there about how to respond, who will respond, and of course they are coordinating that with Hezbollah. But there is some reason, at least it seems in the press, that Israeli Defense Forces are expecting something potentially tonight, if not tomorrow. But we will see if it's just Hezbollah, if it's coordinated between Hezbollah and Iran, and everything else that is involved in that. So I will definitely keep you updated as the situation in Israel develops and as it evolves, because it is an evolving situation. Also, with regard to Israel, you've probably seen that Israel attacked a few days ago. It attacked a mosque within a school compound, and it claimed that in that mosque was being used as a command center by Hamas. The Palestinian Authority the Hamas authorities immediately announced that over 100 people have been killed. They've later revised those figures to somewhere closer to 80. Israel rejects those estimates. It has actually shown satellite images of how accurate the bomb strike was and how the other buildings in the school were not hurt, and that just this one building was destroyed. They have also publicized the names of the Hamas and Islamic Jihad commanders who were killed. They listed 19 names of people who were in this mosque when they attacked it and killed. Mosques are usually not attended by women. Mosques are usually not attended by children. It is a male-only thing. So it's hard to understand about the women and children and how they got killed, why were they in the mosque, particularly given how stringent how careful Israel is in making sure when they bomb something that the civilian casualties are minimized. But who knows how many died? There's massive discussions online and about whether this is, quote, a war crime. Whether, there are, people are listing down how you're supposed to attack and how you're supposed to do things, and did Israel qualify here and not qualify there, and exactly what the procedure is and what's legit and what's not legit. And it's just absurd. I mean, this is a war. It's a war of self-defense. And in a war, you do what is necessary in order to win, in order to destroy your enemy. And for there even to be these absurd criteria about what qualifies as just or what qualifies as, quote, legal by what legal standard and whose enforcement mechanism? It is just insanity. I will not be surprised if the International Criminal Court or some other international entity decides that Israel is committing war crimes and puts out arrest warrants on Israeli generals, on Israeli political leaders. But it is an absurdity. It is ridiculous. It is a negation of the whole nature of war. War is barbaric. That is its nature. War is a negation of law. In many ways, war is a negation of morality. The only commitment, the only responsibility in a war is for that party defending itself to do it while minimizing its own casualties as much as it can. Israel is, being way too careful, if anything, in how it's engaging in this war. The problem is not that Israel is being callous, quite the contrary. Israel is being way too careful in this war in terms of, and ultimately sacrificing its own people and time and everything else in engaging in the war. And it's just, I keep seeing these legalistic posts about, did it qualify, didn't it qualify, based on bogus made up kind of rules of engagement that make no sense. That basically position some kind of legal principles above the right of anybody to defend themselves, and in that sense treats the enemy as equal, as having moral status. So when you see those kind of things, you've got to just dismiss them. It doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing that matters is that Israel win, and it win quickly, and it win decisively, and it win without sacrificing its own kids. So, there's a bunch of stories about Israel being criticized. There's a bunch of stories of Israel defending itself, and then the bunch of legal experts going online and trying to, dot the I's and cross the T's about whether Israel did this and whether Israel did that. Again, war is the exact negation. The entity that starts a war is the entity that, by definition, is negating the very principle of reason, the very principle of reasoned and negotiations and reasoned agreement, and negates the very idea of peaceful coexistence. So I don't know, the whole idea of, we're going to have a gentlemanly war. We're going to have a war with rules. We're going to have a war, with humanitarian principles. The whole point of a war is the negation of all that. All right. So it turns out Musk is going to be interviewing Trump today. So this will be interesting. I don't know, maybe fun to watch. I don't know, I'm not sure. But later today, on X, on Twitter, there will be an interview of Musk interviewing Trump. So if you're interested, and if you want to see the latest, greatest in terms of what Trump has to say about the world, watch the interview with Elon Musk, fawning, I think, over Trump. I did see a great tweet that I want to read to you. This is a tweet from Cliff Asness. Cliff Asness is a very, very successful money manager, hedge fund manager, really manager of money in the public markets, and generally a good guy. And he wrote this tweet. And now, Cliff has been historically very anti-Trump, but he's also very pro-Israel and very concerned about the anti-Semitism seen on American campuses. And as a consequence, given the Biden administration's kind of response to everything, I think he has shifted, and he has said that he is actually considering voting for Trump. So this is the context in which he tweets this. He's actually considering voting for Trump. Maybe he's already made his mind up that he is voting for Trump, not because he likes Trump, but again as a counter to the left, the crazy left. Anyway, this is what he wrote. He says, "Is there a memo in the Trump campaign? Do they do memos? Are they that organized? That says, quote," this is from the memo, "instead of focusing clearly on the issues, where across the board, Harris and Waltz are far to the left of the country, we should continue our laser-like focus on 1. Continued claims that 2020 was stolen. 2. The precise racial makeup of Harris. 3. The Dems' internal process for switching candidates, because we're annoyed we don't get to run against a really old guy. 4. Press bias, as however true that this may be, America loves a whiner. 5. Personal attacks on politicians Trump doesn't like, who are popular swing state governors. And I can't stress this enough, 6. The vital issue of relative crowd sizes. End quote. Because if so, if this memo exists that lists this, they are executing to a T. Now, I think that's actually perfect, right? Because that's what Trump is running on. He's running a grievance campaign around 2020 and around, I don't know, is Harris black or Indian or what exactly she is, and around Biden being replaced, and about the press, and about everything else. I mean, and attacking, I don't know, the governor of Georgia, who's a Republican in a swing state. And of course, Trump's grievance from the day he got elected, literally the day he got elected, his grievance over crowd sizes. Cliff, in a later tweet, added number 7. This is again from the Trump imagined memo. Quote, "We definitely need to keep just asserting the proven fact that she's been the worst vice president in American history, including the one who killed Alexander Hamilton." So yes, this is the. I mean, Trump is running a dumb campaign. Hard to second guess Trump, but he was much better in 2016. Much better, not from my perspective, he was terrible in 2016. But he was better from a perspective, I think, of chances to win. I mean, he's really bad. He's not hitting the points that I think he could win on. He could win on Israel. He could win on he's obviously hammering the border home, but it's the only issue he's really hammering home. I mean, all these other things are stupid distractions that are not going to convince anybody in the center or, who is not already a committed Trump dedicated fanboy, that I'm going to convince anybody outside of that to vote for Trump. I don't know what he's doing. But again, Trump is the marketing genius when it comes to these things, not me. All right, let's see. A few other stories, and then I think we will switch to your super chats. All right, so last week, it turns out that a number of cryptocurrency industry leaders, including executives from Coinbase, from A16Z, from Kraken, from a number of other places, had a conference call with the White House and with Kamala's advisors with the idea of the Democrats getting behind crypto. And yet at the same time, this administration is doing everything it can to make it basically impossible for crypto to bank, for the crypto industry, for the crypto companies to actually have a relationship with a bank. This has been coined choke point 2.0. I don't know if you remember choke point 1.0. Choke point 1.0 was an Obama administration policy of, instead of going after industries and saying, we don't like you, we're going to shut you down, we're going to close you down, which they know is unconstitutional and they can't actually do. Industries like payday lending, gun industry, and in the case of the Obama administration, private colleges. Instead of actually just going after them and shutting them down, which they can do because it would be unconstitutional, what the Obama administration actually did, and this is not sci-fi and not a conspiracy theory, but actually what the Obama administration did, is they told the banks, as part of bank regulation, that they should be very wary of banking. Private colleges, gun companies, payday lenders, and others. Basically, they encouraged the banks to stop, banking these people. So these companies could not open checking accounts, they could not have lines of credit, they could not take out loans. They basically lost their banking relationship, which basically means it killed the industry. The same thing is being applied to crypto. Over the last 2 years, banks have been basically prohibited from banking crypto companies. Banks that have banked crypto, like Silvergate, which was a bank in California that specialized in crypto, were basically encouraged to shut down. Silvergate shut itself. It basically unwound and went out of business. Signature Bank of New York, which banked quite a few crypto companies, was taken over by regulators and declared bankrupt, even though there's a lot of reasons to believe that it wasn't bankrupt. And now the Federal Reserve has issued an enforcement action against Customers Bank, one of the few U.S. crypto-friendly banks left, and it requires that they must notify regulators 30 days before taking on any new crypto clients, which means they're not going to. They're basically trying to kill the crypto industry. Now, whatever you think about crypto, good, bad, money, not money, Bitcoin, good, bad, whatever, this is disgusting. None of the government's business. Let the market decide. The government is basically taking a position, but not a position of saying, okay, we're going to outlaw crypto. Okay. I mean, evil and bad, but at least it's straightforward. But what the left is doing, and this is all, if you have to point at somebody, this is Elizabeth Warren's doing. Elizabeth Warren is behind almost all of these efforts. Elizabeth Warren and her people and her supporters in Congress and in the Biden administration, in Kamala's administration, have basically decided to shut down crypto, and they've decided that the way they're going to do it is by cutting off their bank relationships, by making it impossible for any bank to bank a crypto company. So I don't know what Kamala's meeting with all these crypto executives. I don't know how she can present herself as pro-crypto in any kind of way when clearly the administration she is a part of is doing what it can in the most underhanded way possible to undermine and to destroy the crypto industry as it is. Let's see. Couple of other quick stories and then we'll do it. The Trump campaign has announced that it believes that its email systems have been hacked. And they think it's by somebody working for Iran. Now, they've shown no proof of any of this, but the reality is that the Trump campaign received questions from news organizations about an internal vetting document on presidential candidate J.D. Vance, a vetting document that had been leaked and sent out to these news agencies. Trump is claiming that the source of that is this the source of that is this leak. I have no idea if it is or it isn't. But it is interesting. And intelligence experts are telling us that Russians, Iranians, North Koreans, and the Chinese are actively engaged in trying to hack the campaigns and actively engaged in trying to spread disinformation. And if they hack and they get content on the candidates from hacking their email, they will do whatever they can and distribute it and make a big deal out of it. So for what it's worth, so this time the Trump administration is responsible for a leaked memo, or somebody is responsible for a leaked memo, and the Trump administration is claiming hacking. It has all these overtones of 2016, just a spin on all of that. Finally, there is a significant resurgence of Islamic State, not just of Islamic State terrorism, not just in Africa. We've talked about that in the past, but there's a resurgence of it in Syria and Iraq, an area that the U.S. has claimed to have rid from the Islamic State. It does seem that the Islamic State is mustering forces in Syria, training young recruits to become suicide bombers, directing attacks on allied troops, and preparing to resurrect its dream of ruling an Islamic caliphate in that region. According to officers from the U.S. and Syrian anti-Assad forces, including Kurdish-led troops, whom the U.S., of course, have been allied with the U.S., even though Trump, knifed them from the back while he was president. Militant ISIS fighters have doubled their pace of attacks in Syria and Iraq this year. And they're using car bombs, and they're doing whatever they can to try to attack and kill U.S. forces that are still in that area. Anyway, interesting phenomena. We were told they were gone and finished, and yep. All right. That is the news on this August 12th. That's what I have. Hopefully, let's see, where are we? We've got to go to here. Let's move this over here. There we go. All right. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And let's see. I remind you that this is a listener-supported show. Can't do the show without support from you guys. Support from you can come in a variety of different forms. You can support the show by making monthly contributions on Patreon. Don't use the app on your phone, if you have an iPhone, to make a contribution through Patreon. If you do, then Apple is going to take 30% of it. 30%. You can do it from your computer, even if it's an Apple. You can do it from a non-iPhone. But if you use the Patreon app on an iPhone to make the contribution, then Apple will take 30%. So please don't do it there. If you're already committed, you've already done it, it doesn't affect past contributions. It doesn't affect, but it will affect new future contributions. Apple has a right to do it, and I have a right to tell you not to use Apple in this case. You can also do it on PayPal, and just the Yaron Brook Show on PayPal, or you can do it through yaronbrookshow.com/membership. Let's see, what else? We have sponsors for the show. We have John Bobbin, on Philly life. John kind of integrates a lot of the information out there on nutrition and on exercise and on life extension and all those kind of things. I mean, you probably hear dozens of voices out there giving sometimes contradictory advice about this. John tries to integrate that and give you advice that is relevant to you as an individual, not aggregate, but to you as an individual. His ideas you should test it on yourself before you commit to something. Make sure it works for you, and I guess he gives you guidance on how to do that. Now, I do not vouch for everything that he says there because it's not my area of expertise, but John is a friend and a supporter of the show and is a huge fan of Ayn Rand's ideas and Ayn Rand's philosophy. So yeah, go to YouTube, search John Barban, B-A-R-B-A-N. B-A-R-B-A-N. Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor as well right now. I want to apologize to you guys in Australia. You can't sign up for the conference yet. The conference is going to be in Australia in December, December 6th to 8th. That'll become available, I think, in early September. What you can do if you're a student, or if you're not a student at a university, but a student of Objectivism, if you're studying Objectivism, if you're interested in expanding your study of Objectivism, you can apply for a scholarship. Now, you can apply for a scholarship if you are in Australia. But you can also apply for a scholarship if you're in India or in the Philippines or in Singapore or in Hong Kong or in China. I know we have some listeners in China or in South Korea or in Japan. In other words, anywhere in that part of the world, Indonesia, Malaysia, anywhere in that part of the world, if you're listening to this show and you would like to come and join us at the Ayn Rand conference in Brisbane, Australia, in December 6th to 8th, then please apply for a scholarship. I mean, they'll pay a chunk of your airfare. So please apply. Please tell your friends about it. Please get the word out. And you can do all that at aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. So that is great. Let's see, what else? Yes, alexepstein.substack.com. alexepstein.substack.com he is the world expert on energy, fossil fuels, and environmentalism. Highly, highly encourage you guys to check out the Substack, subscribe, and support the work that he does. You can also sign up for Alex AI, which is basically an AI trained on Alex himself. And on everything that he's written and everything that he said, and you can try it out. So yeah, go ahead, sign up. The work that he does is fantastic, and he's definitely worthy of your support. Finally, you can support the show right here, right now, as a live listener on YouTube. And if you're not on YouTube, if you're listening to the show, let's say on Twitter. Right now, there are about 200 people watching this on Twitter. You can come over to YouTube, and in YouTube, you can support the show with a super chat or a sticker. That is a great way to be supportive. You can ask a question. That way, you shape the direction of the show. Or you can just do a sticker where you don't have to commit to a question. So please come over and consider asking a question. Haven't been here for a while. You've saved up a bunch of money that you didn't spend on super chats while I was gone, so please step in. This week we'll have shows tomorrow and on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to try to do shows, but I will be on the road. We're going to go take a drive through part of Spain here, kind of part of eastern Spain. We're going to go up to Andorra, if you've ever heard of Andorra, which is a small country between France and Spain. I want to see what it's like. Check off one more country in Europe off my list. So we will be going up to Andorra over the weekend. I'm hoping to do a show from there, tell you about Andorra. It's supposed to be really beautiful. But you can expect a show tomorrow and on Wednesday. So please don't forget, supporting the show is how we make this happen. It doesn't happen without your financial support. This is, all right, let's see. So, we're close to an hour, and we're about half of what an hour should cost. Each hour is about $250. We raise $250 per hour. So we're a little short. If there's any of my whales out there, step in with $100 or $150 to get us to where we need to be. All right, Silvanus, when you say all that matters is Israel winning, isn't that effectively saying the ends justify the means? In the case of war, the ends do justify the means. That is, as long as the means are oriented towards the end. That is, in a war, you must, from moral perspective, do whatever is necessary in order to achieve victory. And the victory has to be as overwhelming as it can be with minimal cost to you. That is your obligation. That is what a government does. Now, it doesn't mean all means are justified. That is, if it meant killing 100,000 Israelis in order to win the war, that would not be justified. But if it means killing the enemy, if it means engaging with the enemy, those means are moral means. And there is no, you are not responsible for the individual rights. You're not responsible for the lives of the enemy, of the enemy's people, including the civilians among those people, including innocents among the enemy. You're responsible to your own people. And that responsibility requires you to achieve victory and to destroy the enemy to the extent, when that is necessary, wherever that is necessary. In objectivism, the means and the ends are not in conflict. The end is life, right? Your life in morality. What justifies that? Well, what means does one take to get it? Well, the means that are necessary for the achievement of life. And those means are the virtues, they are morality, and they are the means. And what's the justification of those means? The end, the fact that you're striving towards life. So the means and the ends are fully integrated. And I think here the same is true. Victory in the war requires you to do what is necessary to win the war. And doing what's necessary is consistent, is those means are moral because they're leading you to win the war. Morality in war applies to victory. It doesn't apply to, how many civilians die. I mean, by that standard, Hiroshima and Nagasaki would be immoral. Bombing Dresden would be immoral in World War II. But no, they were moral because they were a means to achieving the goal, the purpose, the moral purpose, which is victory, which is the destruction of Nazism and the destruction of Japanese imperialism. All right, let's see. Mary Aline, thank you for the sticker. Enric, thank you for the sticker. You guys are great. Let's see. Stephen Harper, thank you for the sticker. By the way, you can also do gift membership. Jeremy, thank you for the sticker. Mary Aline again. Let's see. All right, that captures everybody. All right, Stephen. France and Britain could have prevented their defeat in the spring of 1940 if they had attacked Germany in September 1939, when they attacked Poland instead of declaring war and doing nothing further. I think that's I'm not a expert in the history of World War II, and the real question is, did they have the forces? Were they ready for such an attack on Germany? Could they have executed on that? But yes, it is true that when Germany attacked Poland and it had dedicated most of its forces to Poland, the British and the French could have opened a second front and attacked Germany from the back, if you will, if they had been on a war footing. The problem is, I think, that Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister of England, and whoever was in charge of France at the time, I don't think had a war footing. They had troops there, but the troops were not ready to move forward. They were caught by surprise by the attack, by the breakout of war. They were caught by surprise by the fact that Germany invaded Poland. They were also caught by surprise by the fact that Stalin cooperated with Hitler and invaded Poland as well, so that the Eastern Front was going to be very short-lived. That is, once Germany took half of Poland and the Russians took their half of Poland, there was a ceasefire on that side. There was no conflict between Germany and Russia. That that period in September, in September 1939, that period where they were attacking Poland but hadn't yet finished, was a period in which Germany was probably at its weakest and could have been attacked from the west. Lack of vision, lack of strategy, lack of preparedness, lack of a mentality that is focused on victory. So, if by that point Churchill was already Prime Minister, maybe they would have done that. But with Chamberlain still being Prime Minister, that was not possible. Thomas, what role does the Israeli Navy play in any of this warfare? We hear about the Army and Air Force all the time, but what does the Navy do in things like the current war? Well, I mean, a lot of what it does is it protects the coast from a potential invasion or potential infiltration from the sea, terrorists trying to sneak in with Hezbollah or Hamas. It also, Israel has used ships offshore to bombard, using the artillery or using their missile systems, to bombard the Gaza Strip to certain targets. So it's another source of firepower. And then in the north, I would say, and you'll see this when Hezbollah attacks Israel, the Navy is going to have an important role in shooting down missiles launched from Lebanon towards Israel. So it will have an air defense role. It is positioned off the coast of Israel, near the coastal cities of Haifa and Nahariya and Akko, to protect those towns and to be part of the Iron Dome system or other kind of missile defense systems on a defensive stance. It is also out there protecting Israel's natural gas facilities that are offshore in the Mediterranean, and it is actively protecting those because there's reason to believe that Hezbollah or maybe even Iran would try to shoot some missiles towards them and destroy that infrastructure. I don't think Iran will do it because once it do that, that opens up it gives an opening for Israel to destroy Iranian infrastructure, something Iranians are very worried about. But anyway, the Navy is there to protect that. I'd say one other role is that the Navy has, like in the US, they have a Navy SEALs unit. In Israel, it's called Shayetet 13, Shayetet 13. And it is one of the 2-3 premier special forces units. It has been involved in many of the special forces operations in the Gaza Strip, in fighting in tunnels, rescuing hostages, and doing lots of other things that we don't know about. So the Navy SEALs are a big factor in this. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Navy also had some assets out closer to Iran. Maybe submarines, maybe boats, closer to Iran to provide another strategic point of attack against the Iranians as a counterattack. So, Israel has, ships that are drones, unmanned ships. It has submarines with missiles. It has a lot of assets, military assets that it can deploy. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those today are deployed in the Persian Gulf or in the Arabian Sea, close to Iran, in positions to strike Iran from kind of an unexpected direction. Jack, hello, Yaron. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Appreciate it, Jack. Thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate it. All right, we're about $100 short of the first hour, $340 short for the second hour. So I don't know. All right, a lot of $2 to $10 questions. Maribbens. So this is another one of her coded messages to PhilosophyAtWork. Did you know that too much axial tilt creates such severe seasons that it may be inimical to the emergence of life? If you want new life, try 23-degree tilt. I didn't know that. I don't know, maybe PhilosophyAtWork actually knew that. And I'm not going to speculate on what she means exactly by new life and what exactly she wants tilted. I'll leave that to all of your imaginations. All right, Ed. If Kamala wins, how do you think Russia, China, and Iran will view her? I just can't see her as a commander-in-chief. Neither can I. But, Russia, China, and Iran, I think, I don't know how exactly they'll view her. They'll view her as a conventional, weak continuation of the Biden administration. I don't think they'll have a lot of respect for her. I certainly can't see Putin respecting Kamala Harris, or Xi respecting Kamala Harris. But I think her policies will be, mainstream democratic policies, and that's what these other countries will primarily be responding to. And I read a little bit about her chief foreign policy advisor, and he's super weak. I mean, his chief foreign policy advisor is a huge supporter of the nuclear deal that the Obama administration struck with Iran. He is against sanctions against Iran. He is generally against sanctions. He's probably against sanctions with Russia as well. Very, very weak in foreign policy. Very, very backseat. America should take a backseat to what's happening in the world and not be involved and not engage. A little bit like the right? Isolationist, if you will. So I don't know exactly how they're going to respond, but it's not going to be good. They, I think, will perceive her as weak and think that they can walk all over here, which is probably true. JCOM, have you watched the film World's Fastest Indian with Anthony Hopkins? I watched it last night and thought it was great. Thought you would enjoy it. Very charming. Yeah, I remember it. I don't remember the details, but I do remember watching it and remember enjoying it. So it's a fun movie. I'm sorry that I don't remember the details of it. And Indian is the motorcycle, right? He has an Indian motorcycle. Indian is a brand, and it's very enjoyable. Very, charming is a good way. So I encourage people, go see it. World's Fastest Indian. Mary Eileen says, thank you, Mary Eileen. Charlie, have you seen the debate between Craig Biddle and Alex Connor? It was about objective morality. I would love to see your take on it. I have not seen it. I guess I should. I might do it. It was funny because I met a rabbi at this conference that was at. I told you about the conference I was at over the weekend. And I met a rabbi there. and he's a very active rabbi in New York, and very active, I guess, with the whole anti-Semitism on campus, and he is anyway very active and very outspoken. And it turns out that he just debated Craig Biddle on the issue of faith versus reason, I guess. So I guess that debate is probably up online as well. I have no idea. I didn't know anything about it. Andrew, altruism destroys the will for the strong to win in military conflict. Yep, it absolutely does. If the aggressor is weaker, but weakness is a virtue, the moral imperative of self-defense for the stronger party is paralyzed. It's morally gross. Absolutely. I mean, altruism basically says you can't pursue your own self-interest. Your own self-interest is wrong, evil. And yeah, well, you know, we have to do some self-interest. We have to stay alive somehow, but not too much. Don't overdo it, right? And that's what altruism does. It even if you take a self-interested stand, it weakens it, it bounds it, it constrains it, because you can't be too self-interested. And much of the damage altruism does is not in encouraging, is not in getting you to actually sacrifice. I mean, literally give up your life or literally work against your interest. But what it does is it makes it not credible to be self-interested. So it weakens whatever response you actually have. So Andrew's absolutely right. It paralyzes the strong. It paralyzes the able. It paralyzes, in military, the powerful, but that's true, it paralyzes the successful in business. How can you stand up against antitrust laws? How can you do anything when you are clearly pursuing self-interest, and when altruism basically negates, says it's immoral to pursue self-interest? I mean, you can do it up to a point because, hey, we all got to survive, and we're not in you know, we're not in paradise, we're not in the next life, and this life is kind of grubby, so you have to pursue some self-interest, but not too much. Don't overdo it, is the main thing. John asks, what do you think of the new bio of Rand by Popoff? I know nothing about it, other than other than you mentioned it, so I looked it up on Amazon, and it's there. I guess it was just published. I've heard nothing about it. I allow me to be super skeptical. And I think, I mean, one reason to be super skeptical about it is that I don't think, and I might be wrong, but I don't think that he had access to the Ayn Rand archives. I don't remember him spending time in the archives and actually getting access to original documents. And maybe he did, but I don't know of it. It's Yale University Press. It's a very prestigious press. You know, the blurbs on the back. But I don't know. I'm skeptical because I haven't heard from my archivist that this guy was engaged thoroughly in her papers and in learning about her and in going to original sources and doing what you would do to write a biography. So, but we'll see. I guess I'm interested in what it's under a whole thing of Jewish lives. So Ayn Rand is Jewish. Yeah, don't know. We'll find out. Why isn't the crypto topic considered jawboning? I don't know what jawboning means exactly. I know jawboning is like talking down something. It's like talking and getting people to act just based on talking, because here it's not just based on talking. Here it's based on actual actions by the regulators that are basically telling banks they cannot deal with this company or that company. And so this is actual force, it's actual coercion, it's actually regulatory, you know, the regulators are making it impossible for crypto companies to be banked, to actually have banking relationships. So no, that's not jawboning. It's actual regulatory dictates. It's actual coercion. Enric, what scenarios and outcomes do you see on the upcoming likely Iran-led attack? I mean, it's really hard to tell. I mean, what I expect is that Iran will launch a more substantial attack than they did earlier in the year. They will do so with the help of Hezbollah. I think they expect, because of, I think the number of missiles will be dramatically larger than what it was in the past. And since some of those missiles are going to come from Lebanon, they're going to have potentially a lot more damage than we saw in the last attack from Iran. So I do expect that. I do expect Israel to retaliate, and it's hard to tell where that takes us. Does that take us to an all-out war from a distance between Israel and Iran? I expect that it will take us to an Israeli invasion into Lebanon and an expulsion of Hezbollah forces from the south part of Lebanon. How far into Lebanon Israel goes, I do not know. I can't tell. I don't have any inside information. But definitely, this is definitely going to be substantial. This is not going to be a, now there is the possibility Iran does not want to piss off Israel too much, that it does something symbolic and insignificant in order to discourage the United States from retaliating. And, then nothing happens, right? So, yeah, I mean, we will see in the days to come. I don't know how Iran is going to calibrate the attack and how forceful it needs to be for its own internal purposes, for their own PR purposes. And that will dictate a lot of what it does, versus, because it's clear it doesn't want a full-out war with Israel, a full-out war that it will lose in major ways. It's interesting that at this conference there was a session on Israel and the war, and it was moderated by a computer science professor from a very well-known and very respected computer science professor from a very good university. And he said that people he's talked to have said that people within the American military that he's talked to have said that Israel would take massive damage if Iran decided to go to war with it, and Iran is much more powerful than people think. And I vocally, passionately disagreed with that assessment and reminded him that U.S. military experts predicted that Russia would take Kiev in 2 weeks or a week. They predicted Israel would suffer thousands of casualties in its attack on Gaza, that it expected Iran to cause real damage to Israel in the first attack. That military experts in America know very little about the Middle East and understand the Middle East, have very little understanding of the Middle East. I think Iran is weak. Andromed. Are religious people eligible for the conferences? Which conferences? Yeah, I mean, the conferences do not ask you, the scholarships, you mean. The scholarship application will not ask you if you're religious. It will ask you, have you read Ayn Rand? Are you interested in Ayn Rand? Are you interested in pursuing reading more Ayn Rand? So it's not asking you, I don't think, what, I'm pretty sure it won't ask you if you're religious or not. I know scholarship students in the past who are religious. It's not going to ask you what you think of Ayn Rand. It's not going to ask you just that you're curious, just that you're studying, just that you're engaged. That's all they care about. So please apply. Oyvind, have you seen Godzilla Minus One yet? Yes, I have, and I think I said it on a few shows back. Really, really enjoyed it. It was a good movie. It was fun. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. It's a very enjoyable movie and great characters and well done. So, yes, I might do a more extensive review of the movie at some point. I'm still behind on movies that people paid me to do. Once I catch up on those, I'll do optional ones after that. Philosophy at Work, in response to maribbens, says, I'm losing a lot of tennis points recently whenever my opponent comes up to the net. I blame immigrants. They're going to take our lobs. Yeah, I mean, he can't lob over his opponent because of immigrants. They're taking his lobs away. All right. We are constantly entertained by the coded messages going from Philosophy at Work to maribbens. All right, everybody. I'm going to call this a night. I have a hard stop. I've got to teach in half an hour. I will see you all tomorrow, probably later, not 1 o'clock East Coast time, but probably 2 or 3 o'clock East Coast time. We'll see. And I will see you then. We'll have the same thing on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever it is. Hunter just came in with $100. Thank you, Hunter. Really appreciate this. He says, a famous book, A Clockwork Orange, published without the last chapter in the U.S. in 1963, became Americans Won't Go For It. In it, the protagonist chooses to give up evil. Free will is theme positive and was undermined. Anecdote about art and culture to support the show. Thank you, Hunter. I assume that is the book that was the basis of the movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie, A Clockwork Orange, which is a very powerful, very disturbing, very difficult movie. It is a movie where, at least in the movie, and I don't know about the novel, I'm curious if this is true of the novel as well. In the movie, he gives up evil because he's conditioned to give up evil. That is, he's conditioned to feel bad, have a negative emotion. I think the condition actually to feel sick, to feel physically sick. Every time he sees an act of violence or he is tempted by an act of violence. And so he's conditioned to be good. And indeed, the whole movie is one big way of undermining free will treating human beings like Pavlovian dogs, like from Popoff, like basically behaviorism, right? Where you condition people to behave in a particular way, and it's all conditioning, and there's no with no will, really. Pavlov, thank you. It's Pavlov, not Pavlov. Pavlovian dogs, that's right. An incredibly powerful movie if you guys haven't seen it. Very violent, very upsetting. But, Stanley Kubrick, one of the brilliant directors of the 20th century. It's very, very powerful. Pavlov's dog. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. I will see you, as I said, tomorrow. Thank you, Hunter, in particular, $99.99. That's greatly appreciated and saved the day a little bit. Thank you for all the super chatters, all the people who supported the show today. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.